Okay, let's check out. It's sort of a double presentation of both Heidegger's um, account of how all sciences are in the light of accepting that the mythexis problem has been, as it were, 2,600 years of striving for something which can't be settled in that form. Attempting to bridge the gap between, in Kant's version, e.g., precepts and concepts, that this can never succeed. Put in sort of more simple and therefore more vague and less exact terms. It's the attempt to bridge any form of rule about what counts as a measure, such as a ruler that's supposed to be 12 inches or 1 foot, a ruler, and something that meets that rule. It doesn't have to be in terms of length or height, but it could be in other ways, such as a word that's spelled the same way backward and forward could be a rule, and then you have to go find something that matches up with that. All these attempts to have something that's perfect and unchanging and then match it to something in the world that's supposed to be passing away or pragmatic or practical. All these attempts to move from the theoretical to the practical have failed. In the light of that, this is what Heidegger then says of the sciences. All the sciences make progress by, according to the things they're trying to do, they refound themselves. They create new foundations for themselves. And then he gives the example of Einstein's revolution, which of course never fully panned out in a certain way, right? Because Einstein in some way did some stuff Newton couldn't do, but then he didn't have the scope that Newton had, and there was some part left over, and then people kept saying, oh, can we get this to work? And then some people went off in a different direction and started doing basically stochastics instead of physics, Schrodinger equations, and some kind of inference through, they call it Bayesian because there's some guy getting Bayes or whatever, but it's just, what it really means is you get some information and then you make an update. But now this update can't be strictly, somehow there's something, it's not strictly automated. It's somebody has to say, it's like the Monty Hall problem, right? The Monty Hall problem is a simple version. But in any case, some new maths or information transfer maths and stuff like this. They tried to do it with, the guy tries to do it with theory of information transfer, but it's in order to claim it's not a form of reasoning, but it's rather something that could be totally cybernetic or technological, not cybernetic, I guess, but technological, not just based on a negative feedback loop, but somehow based on a machine that doesn't require some kind of intervention, something like judgment. But okay, here's all these examples of there was something, Newtonian physics, but then it's sort of becoming other things. It mutates by changing at its fundamental ground. So this is the same, and it creates a sort of madness. So now let's try to, we're looking for some oracles So we cast a horoscope on the immediate situation, and we investigate. Okay, maybe we don't find anything, maybe we do. And so this is history as historiology is the same as all those other fields. It's a field that has a foundation where you could have a change in the foundation. And then Heidegger is saying the change in the foundation could come because you're trying to solve a problem of some kind, for instance. So now I give an example, and I was just wanted to see if we could find anything that could put us in the right direction from within it, which is that so Dugin presents World War II. I was just thinking of this because somebody was posting about honor. I think there was a post about the author of Storm of Steel. Is that what it's called? Storm of Steel. Junger, saying, yeah, the honor went away and was replaced by, how does he understand technology as the titanic force of technology? And the Gatling gun coming in is especially identified with this moment. And for the Germans, the French acquired it first. The House of Hohenzollern refused it as beneath their code of honor, Bismarck and so on. Then Bismarck goaded the French into going to war because he realized the Gatling gun wasn't actually going to give them the advantage they believed it would, and it didn't, and then they lost the Franco-Prussian War, Hinckley, Lacrimae. But okay, so from here, all these tears. But so the World War II interpretation as a piece of historiology is usually in vernacular English. Like from where I'm from, usually people would say, oh, that is from Northern California. That's historical revisionism. And so this type of thing would be dismissed as the science fiction of Philip K. Dick or something. Oh, you're doing historical revisionism. It's boring. Why are you doing historical revisionism? But historiology, it claims to be doing something deeper. It's not just saying, oh, the Americans, what would happen if the Nazis won World War II instead of the Americans. It's saying, what if we understood the basic categories through which we bring this sort of picture or revelation of history to ourselves differently. So what I was thinking of is we could have this different Aragness where instead of understanding the fourth political theory as Dugin thinks you have the liberal forces, the fascist forces, and the communist forces. So this is he takes this up, I think, partly because in order to understand what the Americans is doing, he studied people like the teacher of Fukuyama, and Fukuyama himself, and Samuel Huntington, Clash of Civilizations, and Mackinder, the English, Mackinder, who's, I think, attached to the London School of Economics, if I remember correctly. But there's a Eurasianism theory. Studying these type of people, then, yeah, that's the image you get, the three political theories. So I just wanted to put forward sort of a possible, to use the much later phrase, the paradigm shift, paradigm being just an example, as it were. So for example, we could say, start with the concepts of not the three political theories, but rather we could understand this as the Germans fundamentally presents a form of neo-Hegelianism. Okay, so it could be interpreted either as Nietzscheanism, neo-Hegelianism, or under the school of German historical juristocracy, or German historical study of law, let's say, under the version of von Goethe. And von Goethe says, Dike, or what was thematized, the old Plato in his Politeia or Republic, so-called justice. Justice is as a substantive, circumstantial condition, like so just as, but it affects the deepest strata of the law, is his main point. So it's like Hegelianism, except we're always in the absolute, but the absolute isn't genuinely the absolute. It's still moving, changing, just as one could say Newton is like the absolute level of physics, but Einstein is also the absolute level of physics. It's moving. It can go in different directions. Yeah, so take that in for a second. All science is seen that way for Dasein. This is Heidegger's vision. And yeah, apply it to World War II. So now you could see Heidegger saying over there are the Americans and the Russians, and they're the same because they're both dominated by the technological essence. There's the two forms of the societies dominated by the technological essence. What do those look like from the point of view, let's say, I mean, I think that's the main, I think the main point is first, instead of three political theories, there's really only two. One is these neo-Hegelian forms, and the other are something else which corresponds to the acceptance of the technological essence. I think that's probably more accurate. So we all know, yeah, because of course, and in a certain way, the Soviet Union shows it more clearly because of the transformation of the style of art, for instance, going along with the Soviet communist materialism, with the cosmic materialism, desire to extract the physical powers of the cosmic material for the Nerod, or for the comrades, I guess, for all the subtotality of the comrades. That's an interesting question sociologically, and I don't know the answer. Like in the beginning of communism, yes, there was like special people like Iron Felix or whatever, special people that stood out. And that Jewish guy that died early too also is very interesting. I think it was featured in Dr. Zhivago as the guy, that sort of frightening guy on the train, kind of. But there are special characters. But was there, at that time, could one say, there was nomenclatura in a way where people felt like the ordinary Soviet citizen was facing off against a class of privileged people? What years exactly did nomenclatura become a bad word? Is interesting. That's a sort of Stephen Cochrane-like question, I suppose. He would be able to answer this type of question, I think. And maybe Mr. Dugan could also answer it. But I feel like I've missed something in the way I want to thematize this, but at least I think this has some Heideggerian sense to it. And also, I mean, just this bare, curvy sort of profile, whereby it would talk about two different sets of the two technological cultures of the Americans and the Soviets, deep in the late industrial revolution period, sort of in the heart, in a certain way, in the heart of the diamond, sparkling within the, you see the orange coming off the torches, when people are making great things during that period. Yet these two powers somehow share something. One response to that, whereas I suppose the generation who is shown in Schlageter in the I'm talking about the play that was dedicated to Hitler on his birthday, and early on, I think in '33, by the I forget the name. I forget his name. Let's see, Hans something, Jans. But in any case, I mean, this play about this guy that blew up a train during World War I or whatever. I just think this whole generation of Germans had one attitude towards what existence was now, and it's probably, I guess it's like probably hidden in a way, because we always think of the Weimar. We think of the Weimar, we think of sort of riotous artistic output of the early 20th century avant-garde of this Kunst. I think of the design and the Bauhaus and all that stuff. And culturally it seems so explosive, but underneath that there's something else active, right? There's all the people that fought in World War I and murdered a lot of people and were still around, and had a totally unusual view of things. And this is interesting that this is very different than the view in America. I suppose in America you also have this in some way too, right? Because they fought in World War I as well. But in any case, I was just trying to, those are probably not that useful, but I was just poking around and looking to see what could be helpful in making this distinction. But I was just going to say, in Heidegger's Black Notebooks, there's a lot of remarks that rely on having simply understood that this technological essence overlaps between the American and the Soviet Dasein at the time, while remarking that the Russian Dasein could be rescued, because he says that in The History of Being, where being is spelled with a Y, in The History of Being seminar, he says explicitly the Russian could open up their Dasein and so on. I don't know why Dugin always ignores that, because he likes to think the assistant of Hermann, the assistant of Heidegger, said about Dasein being a racist category, which doesn't really make sense, except in the sense that Heidegger has to, as he says, thresh out of himself, so therefore he's Heidegger, and as Heidegger he's a German of a certain sort, but first from the Catholic part of the countryside somewhere, and then only later from a more Catholic Freiburg and so on, and then, but only later from a wider vista of things, of Germany, I suppose. But that if he really only speaks as it is rather than takes up a fake generality, then of course he has to say something that's in a certain way particular and not universal in the sense that and then just in this sense one could say in the sense of Dasein, since he's saying, yeah, this is what I see, and then I'm a mid-sign. According to Heidegger, sees himself always as mid-sign. And I think this might be a feature of his personality, but the same personality probably exists in most cultures. People that see themselves more as mid-sign and less as radically individual. I mean, the direct sense of that is, for Heidegger, it's either solipsism, but that would be like a positive sort of, it's as though you would immediately say, oh, it's solipsism, and then affirm it as a positive position. But what Heidegger is saying is, like, already we're assuming the other Dasein exists, so therefore we don't really have that position. And he says George Berkeley also took this position, and there's something about that in Husserl too. But okay, I'm going away from the primary possibility of vista on this, some different way of analyzing World War II, and then with the notion that in analyzing it differently, then we would see our own time differently.